Let me begin with my greeting. Good morning to our friends in North and South America. Good afternoon to our friends in the UK and Europe. Good early evening to our friends in the Middle East and India. Good evening to our friends in Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. Good late evening to our friends in Australia. Good to see you all. Lots of familiar faces, Dhamma friends. We have many questions this evening, don't we, JC?
Yes, Prajan. Question 1, dear Ajahn. If one's last thought moment is A, lustful, B, greedy, C, angry, where will they likely take their rebirth? Thank you.
If a person's last thought moment is lustful, greedy, or angry, where will they likely take their rebirth? So, Ajahn I've discussed some of these things with my teacher, and he said the two most important things are the average level of your mind throughout your lifetime, plus, the merit or demerit one has made, and the last moment. So there's a few things that are important. So if a person has powerful, potent protective merits, that will also affect the outcome. If a person has quite heavy negative karmas, that will also affect the outcome. So among lustful beings, well, most beings have lust, right? So there's a whole spectrum depending on your merit of where you could be born. You could be a lustful hell being, you could be a lustful ghost, you could be a lustful animal, lustful human, you could even be a lustful deva. Apparently in the Dawatimsa you get 100 wives. But I'm not sure if you can have 100 husbands if you prefer. I'm not sure. Who would want that anyway? But apparently such outcomes do occur. So the merit one has accumulated, it is important. I think it's not quite talked about enough, and I'm glad the question is asked, because obviously the last thought moments, the state of mind as we're leaving this life, does play an important factor. So a lot of Theravada practice has the emphasis upon just contemplating the fact of death, so that when it occurs, you will be hopefully not too surprised or shocked by it. Also, we emphasize sitting meditation quite a bit, and during the process of sitting meditation quite a bit, you will get practice of being with painful feelings. So having an ability to be with painful, racking feelings, having an acceptance of the fact of impermanence and a deep acceptance of the fact that death occurs to the body, then one can bring a certain presence of mind and clarity. But seeing the dangers of having a negative mind state, and which is probably quite likely, because we all know how we feel. Just to give a bit of a context, we all know how we feel if we don't get enough sleep for a few days, or we have a few more painful feelings than we'd like to practice with, or some bad news. Like when negative phenomenon impinge on the mind, we can get grumpy. If the painful phenomenon, the unpleasant feelings, unpleasant sights, unpleasant sounds, unpleasant emotions continue, we can go from grumpy to irritated. We can go from irritated to angry. And I once went to visit a lady in hospital, and she said to me, "I just want to die." And she was kind of yelling and squirming. And on one level, it's fair enough, but it's probably not going to lead to a very good outcome. So this is one of the benefits of preparing for that time, whenever it comes, that even if there are painful, racking feelings, we do have to have some ability to brighten the mind. One of the ways that we do that is recollecting the good things that we do. And so it is important to do good things. We do have to do good things so that we can recollect them at such a time. So dana, sila, and bhavana is the Buddhist training. So we have to be practicing some kind of generosity. If we don't have much money, then we can help. We offer time, offer services, offer friendly listening ear, do some volunteer work, whatever is possible. One tries to maintain a generous heartedness so that when we come to an illness at the end of our life, if we have the good fortune of knowing that we're going to die, then we have something to recollect that gladdens the mind. Similarly, if we've chaganusati means recollecting all wholesome deeds. So that's not just the generosity, that could be the temples one's visited, the auspicious occasions one has attended, one's own spiritual practice, the daily meditation, the daily chanting. But it's good to do some practice of that before we get to the sickness bed, before we're in the hospital. Every now and then, recollect the good things that you've done and get some practice at rejoicing in it. And some modern people have some resistance to this because they don't want to be self-indulgent, or they don't want to be vain. But the point is, we do need to develop skill in brightening and gladdening the mind when it's becoming dejected. And if we hope to be able to do that when we're dejected, we need to have practiced it when we aren't dejected. It's like lifting weights, so that when you have to lift a heavy weight, you can lift it. You do some training of these things. So every now and then, you recollect the good things you've done. If you're more virtuous than you used to be, you recollect that virtue, and you just simply rejoice. It's like recollecting that virtue, and you give yourself a little sadhu. Right? Oh, I keep more precepts than I used to. I am more virtuous than I used to. Breathing in sadhu, breathing out sadhu. And then similarly with your whatever generosity, whatever spiritual practices, and you recollect, yeah, I really have been diligent with my meditation. I now meditate daily, and I can see I have more clarity. Breathing in sadhu, breathing out sadhu. So that if you get in a grumpy, dejected, depressed state, the mind becomes kind of gray and dark. You've developed some ability to brighten it, not to hold on to, focus and grasp on the negatives. This is important, so that it reduces the chances of being depressed and irritated when we die. So yes, in general, a lot of lust. I don't know if you've ever seen dogs when they go into heat, or cats when they go into heat for that matter. It really takes over their minds, and a lot of dog lovers will be saying, that's not fair, Ajahn. Dogs just go into heat once a year. Human beings, on the other hand, it's true. There's some truth to that. Human beings can be in heat quite often. Among the beings in the realm of the four kings, the Chatu Maharaja, generally speaking, the Nagas have more lust than the Yakas. The Yakas have more irritation and aversion. The Gandhabas, the celestial musicians, probably have more lust and a love of sensuality and music, etc. If you have a lustful thought, but you have a lot of merit, and you like beauty, refined sensuality, that's going to probably lead you to Dawatingsa heaven, where the beings have different kind of celestial mansions. And apparently the devas can suffer in that realm out of jealousy because someone else's celestial mansion is more beautiful than theirs, because different devas have different amounts of merit. So one of the forms of suffering of the Dawatingsa devas is his 100 wives are more beautiful than my 100 wives. In general, it's not recommended, although Indra is there, Saka, Devaraja, king of the Devas, and it would be nice to meet him. But in general, it's not so recommended to be reborn in a sensual heaven realm. You want to go a bit higher. The heaven realm that Krubajans that I know recommend is Tushita heaven, because it is the heaven of the contented, not the heaven of the devas who are delighting in sensuality. It is the heaven of those who are feeling mental contentment already. It's the result of being able to have frequent upajjhara samadhi. So when you're experiencing upajjhara samadhi, neighborhood concentration, the mind is experiencing a lot of coolness, only wholesome thoughts. And so one tries to meditate a lot to experience upajjhara samadhi with some consistency. That will increase your chance of being able to jump higher at the moment of death. So the next question is related. So please, the next question.
Question 2, dear Ajahn. I learned from a Dhamma teacher from the Theravada tradition that during intercourse, this isn't as private affair as we might think. There are many gantabha waiting to take their rebirth. Please comment. Thank you.
So this is an interesting. The question is, during sexual intercourse, it may not be as private an affair as we think, because there are many consciousnesses or minds trying to take a rebirth. So this is probably true. I guess it's interesting, among Buddhist practitioners, people tend to have a bit of a bias one way or the other. There are those who, oftentimes people who study the Abhidhamma, tend to think that like the moment you die, that's the death, and then the next moment is a completely new life. And I don't think that actually makes very much sense. There's a lot of, just when you look at how life works in general, I would say, well, I'll tell you what Ajahn said. So if you have extremely potent merits and you've trained your mind, yes, the moment of death, very fast rebirth in heaven, because the potent merits, Lord Buddha says, it's like at the time of death, if you throw a rock in a river, it sinks. If you throw a butter on the river, it floats. So if your merits are like butter, very potent, very powerful, it's going to float. Similarly, if you have very heavy demerits, then yes, a quick, rapid rebirth in a. But what I wanted to mention about this is it's not one life ends and other merits ripen in the next moment. There is a bridge there. So the mind state, in the last mind states that you're experiencing, people who tend to have a heavenly rebirth have actually managed to have a bright mind state as they're dying. And people who have a hellish rebirth have probably been suffering while they're passing away. I was talking to somebody in Australia recently who worked in old age care, and she said sometimes there are old people dying alone who are screaming out in terror as they die. And similarly, there are people who just kind of pass away very peacefully. And this person had seen many people die, so she'd seen people die with different karmas affecting their minds. So with the more intermediate births, closer to where we are, animal, human, earthbound devas, apparently they take a few days. So something leaves the body and has to find a suitable rebirth. To enter into a womb, apparently the way it works is the mind has to find a suitable, and this is where you have a lot of anecdotal evidence that something that looks very much how you used to look is wandering around, but without your physical body. What is that? So in Pali, it's called a sambhavesi, a being awaiting rebirth. It's going to get a bit, okay, I'm going to challenge your assumptions here a bit. You think when you have knee pain, it's in your knee, right? You think when you have a headache, it's in your head. Well, as it's described in the suttas, it is feelings that arise due to body-based contact. All of those feelings are arising in consciousness. Bodies don't have feelings. Bodies are made of 4 elements. If bodies had feelings, once consciousness left, when it died, if you go up and thumped the corpse in the face, the corpse would yell out, ouch. But since consciousness is gone, I don't recommend you punch any corpses in faces. I'm just giving an example. That no, there's no noise. So recently, when my sister and my brother were sitting at the bedside of my elder sister who passed away, Diane and Craig, Diane felt something move out of the body fast, like a wind. And she said, "Did you feel that?" She said to Craig, and Craig said, "Yeah." Something left the body. So Lord Buddha does explain that you have 6 sense bases: eye consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, mind consciousness, sense bases. Eye sense base, nose sense base, tongue sense base, ear sense base, body sense base, consciousness. So I would deduce that body consciousness leaves the body and looks kind of similar to how you looked. This would explain why people have dreams of their relatives when they pass away, often in the 2 or 3 days after they die. But in a way, then people get confused. So you're still the same person. Actually, it is a kind of a rebirth. You've been reborn into the intermediate state, what the Tibetans might call a bardo being. So it's obviously not the same. You don't have the same 4-element body. You don't have this, you might talk to people, but they can't hear you or see you. They're not answering you. So it's different. It is a next moment rebirth, but if it's got the kind of karma, the mind has the kind of karma that it's going to take a human rebirth or an animal rebirth or a Bhuma Deva, earthbound Deva rebirth. It actually has to find a suitable, perhaps not with the Bhuma Deva. Perhaps the mind can leave the mind in a happy state and become a Bhuma Deva and look quite similar. This is one of the ways you can tell if it's a ghost or not a ghost, if people start to see these things or dream about these things. If a person sees, and having been a monk for coming on 30 years, I've heard a lot of stories of people coming and telling me what they see in their meditation or what they see wandering around their house after somebody dies. Many, many stories. So if somebody walks in the room that looks rather like how your wife or your husband used to look, and you don't get a cold chill up your spine, if they look younger, if they look happy, if they have a clear complexion, if they have nice clothes, they may have been born as a Bhuma Deva, looking very similar to how they used to look, because they liked that life and they didn't particularly want to go. So they're happy there, but because they have merit, they get a similar form in a similar space, a kind of parallel realm. Now, if a person sees someone that looks like their husband or wife or child that comes in and it's kind of misty, kind of gray, and they get a cold chill up their spine, ooh, okay, that person probably is a ghost. So they get reborn as a ghost, even though they look similar. And so it's described in the suttas that if a person is going to have a human birth, they actually need to find a couple who are copulating. And there has to be desire. The consciousness the mind has to find one of the people who are having sex attractive in order for the mind to go into the womb and fuse with the egg and the sperm. Like you actually have to have that moment of craving and thrust yourself into another birth. That's how human births happen, apparently. So yes, it is possible that when people are making love, hopefully there's some love there, but stay focused. Yes, it's possible that there are consciousness around that are trying to get in and have a nice human birth. Of course, if you're taking a contraceptive pill, that consciousness is going to be a bit frustrated and has to keep trying. So yes, and next question, please, JC. They're quite related. So yes.
Question 3, dear Ajahn Achalo. A close family member and her ex-husband had 6 embryos frozen after she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Their marriage did not survive the challenge of a mastectomy and chemotherapy. The embryos have now been discarded. Please advise on the karmic consequences of discarding the embryos. Much metta.
Yes. Yeah. So my condolences to the person who had the cancer. So that's the thing. If there is the egg, that's a potentiality. That's like a field, but there's no mind there yet. So the egg and the sperm has to come together, and then the consciousness fuses with those cells, and that's actually apparently what's possible, what makes it possible for the cells to keep multiplying and become a being. So in disposing of embryos, I don't think there's any bad karma. And yeah. So I'll just tell a couple of stories. There was a story in the time of the Buddha where some family were in need of some wealth, and apparently a miserly millionaire had hidden his treasure. He didn't want to give any inheritance. He didn't want to share it. And so the miserly millionaire was then reborn as a crocodile who lived in a pond near the buried treasure. And the Lord Buddha was able to see this, and he told the relatives, well, if you go and dig under that tree, you might find something. And, in Katina's ceremonies in Thailand, they hang up a flag of a crocodile. And the point is, don't be stingy, don't hoard your wealth, make merit while you can. And apparently, if you dream of a crocodile or have a vision of a crocodile, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It might mean that there's some wealth coming, because the fact that that crocodile used to be a millionaire. And there was another one as well. I think another miserly person buried some treasure and got born as a dog, and living near their treasure. So a lot of people these days don't have treasure buried. A lot of people are struggling to pay the bills. But if you are the kind of person that has a pile of treasure, I recommend that you, as Lord Buddha, I recommend that you be generous for your own benefit. You don't want to be born as a crocodile.
Thank you, Prajan. Question for dear Ajahn. My cat always wants to sit on me even when I practice meditation. Also, she loves to snuggle under my neck in bed. I am a semi-retired grandmother, and I'm concerned that if I die in my sleep, I could take on the form of a cat. I have learned from a Tibetan Buddhist nun's teaching that no animals should be on my bed, especially a cat, during the dying process. In addition to this, she advised not having any animal skins or animal products in the room, and I have a feather duvet on my bed. As you have taught, we do not know when we are going to die. Should I lock out my cat and get rid of my feather duvet?
Yes.
Thank you.
So there is something to this. So the person is talking about being very close to what Lord Buddha calls animals with four legs is a sat delachan. Delachano is a horizontal being, not a vertical being, a being with a horizontal spine. We love our pets, and we tend to project all sorts of things onto them. And in, among animals, there will be some that are sweeter than others. If they were nice human beings that had a not very wholesome mind state, they might get born as a really lovely golden Labrador or golden retriever, or something friendly and something intelligent like a poodle. But in general, like, I have cats and I love my cats. But just before this teaching, I put the cats outside so they don't come up and play with all the cords and everything. And so one of the venerables came in the door, and the cat came in with a mouse in its mouth. And I remember my Siamese cat, I was patting her belly, and she looked like so sweet and affectionate. And the side of her eye, she saw a gecko. She jumped up, she grabbed the gecko, and I grabbed the back of her head, and she dropped the lizard from her mouth. And then the other cat jumped on the lizard, and I heard this crunch as the gecko's skull was crushed. So, we can be projecting onto the cat that the cat's so sweet, the cat's so sweet. But as soon as the cat sees another being that it thinks is food, it's killing it. So there are these, animals are under the influence of instinct more than humans. They do have less reflective ability, and in general, their minds are probably darker. So there is something to this. Do you want a darker mind than your own, sitting basically within your mind while you're meditating? Probably not. Do you want a being who has less merit and more karma to work through, and a darker mind sleeping on you as you sleep? Probably not. It's we are kind of porous to some degree. We are affected by the minds of the people around us to some degree. So for myself, when I wake up and I need to go to the toilet, I give the cat a cuddle. One of the first things I do every day is feed the cats and be affectionate with the cat, right? It's a really nice way to start the day, being nice to another being, being generous, showing some affection. And then I, have a glass of water and wash my face and go and meditate. But I don't let the cat sit on my lap while I meditate. And I don't let my cat sleep with me either. And unless I remember when they were kittens and maybe missing their mum or whatever, I kind of let them stay with me for a couple of days and sit in my hands while I'm meditating when they fit in your hand. But as they grow up and become adult cats, there's a few times a day where I cuddle them and feed them, but I don't meditate or sleep with them. I think the possibly about the Tibetan animal products. In Tibet, traditionally, people had clothes made of animal skins and maybe implements with feathers and all sorts of things in fusion with some shamanistic practices, and those may have had some interesting energies around them. I think a duvet, if there's probably no consciousness there, I don't think that would be such a big issue. But there is something to not getting too close to our animals. It's like the mind becomes like what it attends to. So if you really, really, really if you're a lovely person and you really, 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 really love dogs, you may become a lovely dog. So, because the mind becomes like what it attends to. It's real. And so healthy boundaries. If you want to be born as a deva, one of the things I say is to chant the Mahasamaya Sutra at midnight. The sutra about when the biggest gathering of devas, apparently each Buddha will have one of these occasions where so many devas come from so many universes that just completely filled the sky. And the Buddha talks about which devas have come from where. And so if you want to be, there's a certain practice that you can do. Bathe, put on fresh clothes, light incense, offer flowers, chant the Mahasamaya Sutta at midnight. That will increase your chances of maybe seeing a deva or dreaming of a deva. If you do it every night, you have more of a chance of being a deva. And it's the same thing, right? The mind becomes like what it attends to. And there was one Burmese nun, probably recently was a deva, or she was it's a Dipankara, Sister Dipankara. When she was a young girl growing up, devas used to wake her up at midnight and they would not let her sleep until she chanted the Dhammacakka Sutta. So if one has been a strong practitioner in the past and been born as a deva with a whole bunch of your friends, but then you come back to continue with the practice, your ex-practicing devas, come on, get up, practice, do some practice. So she was experiencing that from childhood. So if you're interested in Tushita, you have to consider Tushita-like things. So that's more chanting, more meditation, more offering beautiful offerings of flowers, incense, holy smells, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Ajahn. Question 5, dear Ajahn.
With the I'll just say about that, with the sex not being as private a matter as we think, you could basically say that about everything. Like I've told a story, there's a whole bunch of stories. I told a story of when I was meditating in Ladakh and with Francois, and the Muslim call to prayer was happening, and I was thinking some thoughts about how Ladakh had been important in preserving some Buddhist suttas, because the Turkish Muslim invasion that had burnt down many monasteries and destroyed the library of Nalanda and killed many monks and nuns for a couple of centuries, about 1,000 years ago, didn't get to Ladakh. And some of Ladakh's sutras, things, went along the Silk Trail and became part of the Buddhist traditions in Korea, Mongolia, Japan, etc. And so I was having those thoughts, and my lay friend was having the thought, this is a predominantly Buddhist place. They should turn that down. They shouldn't be that loud. And so we were just thinking those thoughts, right? And then all of a sudden, a window slams shut. There was no wind. We both get an icy chill up our back. The candle on the shrine goes out by itself. And I'm like, and I asked Francois, I said, Francois, were you just thinking some thoughts about Muslims? I just had a feeling, like I knew, I was mindful of what I'd been thinking, but I also had a feeling there's an angry Muslim in the room. It's like, I'm meditating, the mind's sensitive, it just picks up some sense impressions. Oh, there's an upset Muslim in the room. And I asked Francois, what were you thinking just now? No, first of all, he says, Ajahn, something is wrong. And I know, Francois, the window closed by itself and the candles have gone out. I noticed that too. What were you thinking? And he said, well, I was thinking that they should turn the volume down, and this is mostly a Buddhist place, and I'm going to write a letter to the tourist authority and blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking, it was really, really good that the Muslim invaders didn't destroy the monasteries in Ladakh. And so I said, okay, we need to share merit now to our Muslim friend, and may they be well, may they be happy. And that freezing cold, not very welcome feeling stayed in that room for a whole day. And then I asked the owners of the homestay, I have this feeling that there's a Muslim ghost in my room. What's going on? And he says, oh yeah, the neighbor next door was trying to get a title deed for his property, and he was a Muslim, and the majority Buddhist government wouldn't give it to him. So he's probably there still upset with the Buddhists for not giving him a title deed. And so I couldn't see if it was there or not, but I went to the room and I went to the window and I said, all right, this land, that's yours. You can have it. That's your land. You stay there. But this is ours. Go away. And it did go away. The icy, unwelcome feeling went away. And similarly, like when I was in the jungle and Ajahn and Nun came on the border of Burma, and I was with my friend Ajahn Sudanto, and Ajahn Sudanto told Ajahn and Nun, I have pretty good food karma, Lumpur, and sometimes, suppose I was to be thinking, I want to eat pizza. Very often someone would bring pizza the next day. And so we were driving out of the jungle, literally in the middle of nowhere, and a car was coming in the other direction, and they stopped us, and this guy steps out of the car and said, oh, I was going to offer you guys food. What's the time? Oh, it's just before midday. Here, take this. And he offered a pizza. So how's that even possible? Well, I would deduce that a deva heard the monk say, suppose I were to say I want to eat pizza, then very often a pizza comes. And the pizza did come. So subtle bodied beings can hear our thoughts. It's a good thing to know, because it's make you mindful, a little bit more mindful. You don't have to become paranoid, but it's good to know that our thoughts affect ourselves and others. And the beings, for the 11 benefits of loving kindness sutta, beings with loving kindness become dear to the devas. So, you imagine you're a deva and you're thinking, oh, who shall I go and pop in on? And it's like, this guy's sitting on the pillow still grumbling. Why does he always do this? He shouldn't have done that. And I'm going to really give him a piece of my mind, and plotting some kind of revenge, or picking some scabs over some old grudges, rolling around in resentment. And the deva's kind of like, ew, that smells bad. Or then there's another person, may I be well, may all beings be well, may I be happy, may all beings be happy, may the Burma devas be happy, may the Ruka devas be happy, Dhamma Timsa devas be happy, Yama devas be happy, may the Tushita devas be happy, may all beings be happy, all beings in the universe be happy, all beings in all universes be happy. Which one is the deva going to like more, right? So yes, our life is not as private as we think. and you don't get away with anything. You know, there's one bodhisattva apparently called Akasagarbha. Just as Cittigarbha is apparently associated with earth element, Akasagarbha is associated with space element. And his particular ability is that if anything occurred in time and space anywhere, he can retrieve the file. What does that mean? It means you don't get away with anything. Someone knows. And someone can dog on you. So be careful. But like I said, I don't want you to get paranoid.
Thank you for sharing, Ajahn.
When you spend time with Kruba Ajahns that can read minds, you actually have to make some adjustment, because there's a sense of, I remember the first time I met Ajahn Anan, that I was in the jungle, and he came to that jungle area, and he said he would talk with the Western monks after spending time with his Thai monks for a couple of days. And one of those Thai monks came out from the jungle, Ajahn Dui, his name is, and he said a whole bunch of things about it. He says, Ajahn Anan says Ajahn Achalo's mind is such and such a color. Ajahn Anan says Ajahn Achalo really likes psychic powers. Ajahn Anan, I'm like, huh? How does Ajahn Anan know this? And then he said, well, Ajahn Anan says Siddhanta is such and such. Ajahn has a character like this. And so it's like, it was really obvious that he'd like looked at our minds and told his Thai monks about them. And I had this real sense of, he didn't ask my permission to read my mind, you know? It's like a huge sense of being trespassed. And it's like, well, you know what? It's just a matter of, if they can see it, they can see it. And it's not yours. It kind of points to not self, right? And but that piqued my interest. I said, oh, Ajahn Anan is no ordinary bhikkhu. And I spent the next rainy season retreat with him. I became quite interested in. Anyway, probably shouldn't talk about these things too much. I didn't say anything. Just back to the issue of privacy. If you thought it, if you said it, if someone wants to know, they can know. At the same time, when I was living with him, I started to get paranoid, like massaging him, and then you get a bit paranoid, and then these like extra nasty thoughts that come up, like the mind's being, you're trying to be really, really, really good, and these rebellious, nasty thoughts come up, like while you're massaging the arahant. It's like, oh God. And then, but you realize that they've seen it all before, and basically they're kind. And if you have a normal level of mindfulness and you're not picking these things up and stewing over it and aiming it with a lot of intensity, it doesn't really register. They've seen lots of dirty minds and kind of silly little thoughts, and they appreciate your efforts. And if you're basically a good person trying, they will be kind to you. So you don't need to be paranoid about monks who may be able to read people's minds.
Sadhu.
I also should say, just because a monk can read people's minds doesn't mean they always are, and doesn't mean they know everything. So it's not possible to know everybody's thoughts all the time. So it's like that practitioner would have to intend to be aware and give that some attention. And Ajahn Anan once told me that he could observe that Ajahn Mahabua could read 200 people's minds in any one moment and know which person thought which thought. So pretty cool. And, imagine being fed up with your own thoughts and then having to be mindful of 200 other people. But if you realize not self and as an experience of empty spaciousness without clinging, the mind probably doesn't experience that as oppressive. And I think these beings can also choose not to be aware. I once paid respects to another famous, believed to be Arahant, Luang Por Ben, and he said to us, he says, yeah, I can read people's minds, but I turned off the ability to because I just got sick of looking at dirty minds. So.
Question 5, dear Ajahn. What are some chants we can learn now so that we can chant the mantra for our loved ones during their passing? When we dedicate merits to those passing on, what is a wholesome way that one can wish for him or her who is transiting, even though our hearts are grieving? Thank you.
So what chants or mantras can we do to assist a friend who is dying when we're by their side? And how do we do that with a bright mind if we're experiencing grief? So that's good questions in terms of training to be mindful, also to die oneself with mindfulness. So it's good to become familiar with a number of chants, and then if you have a favorite, then to chant that enough that you've actually memorized it so that you would be able to recollect it without reading it. That's a really good thing to be able to do. Because if you find yourself stuck on a bed and not being able to pick up a book or look at a tablet or press a remote controller, you're left with your mind. If you have a chant that you can recollect, so obviously the three jewels, the Itipiso chant, praise to Buddha, praise to Dhamma, praise to Sangha, it's not so long, and it's good to recollect the refuge. But you can keep it simple. Suppose you get tighter and tighter and your mind's not working, it's just Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. You can be doing that as you're dying. Buddha is my refuge, the Dhamma is my refuge, the Sangha is my refuge. If you have a favorite mantra, you can recollect it. But this question was with regards to someone else's dying, what chant is good. So ideally, you would want to be doing their favorite chant or chants that reminded them of their practice. So if it's your Theravadan friend, find out what chants they did frequently, chant their favorite chants. And if it's someone who's more of a Mahayana practitioner, you can chant something that they might like, or you can invite. There are some groups that will come and chant for people who are dying in Mahayana circles. You can also play things, audio tracks, and with the issue about if you're feeling sad, how do you chant for the person in a way to bring good energy? So that's a challenge, isn't it? I remember when my own father was passing away, and so that's about 7 years ago. I'd been a bhikkhu for 21 years, a novice for a year, 22, been practicing Buddhism for 23 years. And when my father was passing away, there were all these beautiful ideas of I would do extra practice, and I remember that my mind just felt bruised. Basically, the whole heart area was just a bruise, and there was less energy. It was just kind of dull. It was a dull ache and a bruise. And all of these ideas of what extra practices I would do or how I would make my mind brighter, it was really hard because you have a loving attachment that's decades long and you're being separated from the loved. So yeah, at that time, I think having other people come and chant with you can be helpful. So who may not have had the same degree of attachment to the person as you do. And then there can be some general uplift of the vibration because other people are coming to help with a caring attitude. And so that's what I did with my sister recently. I asked many of my students around the world to please chant for her, dedicate merit to her. Once in Singapore, I was visiting a lady who was dying of cancer, lung cancer. And I walked into the room and her relatives were like grabbing at her arms and crying, and they were just being honest and truthful about the fact that they loved her and they were really sad to see her in that state. But I did have a firm word with those people, and I said, look, I understand why you're so sad. You're so sad because this was a really lovely person who was a very good person and who benefited your life. That's why you love her so much. That's why you're so sad. But you need to think about this. What is the best way to repay that love and that kindness? What is the best way to show your gratitude? Do you really think that grabbing this person and filling her with your sadness is going to be helpful to her at this time? So I have a request for you. If you need to cry, go outside. When you come in this room, you're recollecting with gratitude why you care for this person, and you're going to aim good energy at her as best as you can. And I had them chant the large numbers of people. She had sisters and nephews, nieces, and good Dhamma friends, and they would chant morning and afternoon and evening her favorite chants. And I asked them to stop touching her at a certain point, like give her permission to go, like stop pulling her back, because if you're touching a person's body while they're dying, it's like they actually do have to leave. And if you're pulling on their arm, you know, it's going to be harder for that person to leave if the person who loves them most is hanging on to dear life. So at a certain point, step back a little bit, I would suggest, and give them space, give them your blessing to go on. And yeah, invite some friends around and chant together with some chants that that person really appreciated. If you are feeling a bit sad and you don't have the energy to do it, you can play the audio of monks or nuns or other people chanting it. It's okay to go outside and breathe a bit and come back in when the sadness is less. So hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Prajan. Question 6. I cannot close my eyes for more than 5 minutes and my body moves a lot. There is a complete frustration and disconnection with Vipassana meditation, which I have been practicing for more than 22 years. I suffer from too much secretion of the neurotransmitter dopamine, and I'm on medication on that since many years. There is suttamaya panya, cittamaya panya, but no bhavanamaya panya. Could you guide me regarding how I can grow in the Dhamma? Thank you.
Oops. Zoom has just signed me out. Can you still see me? I got a black screen, JC. Am I still
yeah,
there?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I can still see you, Ajahn. Can still hear you as well.
Okay. So this person has a challenge with the chemicals and secretion in the brains. So the 3 types of developing wisdom: suttamaya panya, cittamaya panya, bhavanamaya panya, cittamaya panya. So the wisdom that comes from listening to Dhamma, and the wisdom that comes from contemplating Dhamma. The last one is the wisdom that comes from deep, direct insight from a focused meditation practice. So I would recommend walking meditation. This person needs to move around a bit. It's not so conducive to sit still. Walking meditation, and walking meditation is a very underappreciated and underestimated practice. So once you've trained yourself to be mindful of the feelings at the bottom of your feet when you walk backwards and forwards up a path, you can then use it in many ways, just the same as you would use your breath. So breath meditation is the foundation of my practice, but I do all of my practices in conjunction with the breath. So if I'm doing anapanasati, I can just make the breath the object, try to put down thoughts, allow the mind to become spacious, the breath becomes more refined. But if I want to cultivate metta, breathing in, may I be well, breathing out, may I be happy, breathing in, may all beings be well, breathing out, may all beings be happy. If I want to contemplate death, breathing in, maranam, breathing out, maranam. So I use the breath with a variety of meditation objects. If I want to do body parts, breathing in kesa, breathing out kesa, or breathing in ati, breathing out ati, bones, etc. So the breath is the kind of the heart of the practice, but all sorts of reflective and contemplative practices can be combined with that. When you're doing a reflective or contemplative practice, you're not aware of the breath in as much refined detail, but you're basically aware of when you're breathing in and you're basically aware of when you're breathing out. And when we do this, this helps us to know that we're kind of centered in the present moment. And but the similar thing can be done with walking meditation. So once you can do Buddha with your footsteps, you can also do Kesaloma, Nakadanta Tacho, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. You can take one body part, ati, ati, ati. You can use your own language, bones, 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 and you're basically aware of your footsteps, but you're taking the bones in your body that are holding your body upright as a meditation object. You can do metta meditation. 1 foot, instead of breathing in, may I be well, breathing out, may I be happy. It's like as you move your feet, a couple of steps, may I be well. Next couple of steps, may all beings be well. Next couple of steps, may I be happy. Next couple of, may all beings be happy. And you cultivate metta while your body is walking. So death meditation can be done, body parts meditation can be done, metta meditation can be done, taking an investigative, like simply noticing when you get to the end of the path, instead of like noticing the cessation of an out breath. It's like you're at the end of the path. Stop, notice, turn around, start again. There's a birth and an aging and a death of every time you walk up the path, another birth, aging, and death as you walk down the path. So you can be mindful of impermanence and all sorts of things. If you're walking outside, basically aware of the footsteps, but you also notice if a breeze comes, aware of those feelings. And those feelings, as the breeze brushes against your face and your skin, you're aware of the feeling arising, staying for some time, ceasing. And so you can take awareness of impermanence as the object while you're broadly aware of the feelings at the base of your feet. So I think this person can take heart that there is a possibility. I mean, in a lot of stories in the Krubharajans of sometimes monks attained while doing walking meditation, sometimes monks entered jhana. I can't remember exactly which Krubharajana it was, but in the jungle, there was one tiger in front and one tiger behind, and this monk was standing and he just went into jhana. He doesn't know how long he was in the jhanic state, but he opened his eyes and the tigers were gone. It's like, and I have heard stories that monks while doing walking meditation have attained to paths and fruits while doing their contemplations. So practice full of potential for cittamaya panya.